starting. We're going to continue with the prophecies about Jesus, the Passover, and try to finish up Passover today. This is lesson 14, I think.
Yes.
And if it's not, it's lesson 13, and we're not skipping 13 because we're not afraid. And so it could be 13, but I think it's 14. And we're going to talk about the 14th of Nisan today anyway. So, but we'll do that, and then you may have seen, if you were looking at the board this morning, that we're moving into Christian ethics next, and that's true. We did some Christian ethics about a year and a half ago, but we really only touched the surface of a couple of them, and I think we'll be doing that more this fall. But I was asked what we're doing this fall, and that ended up on the slide today. To me, you know, fall starts September 21st, right? So we are legalists here too about the date. So anyway, we'll do this week on the prophecies of Jesus. Next week I'll do a question and answer deal. So if you have any questions to bring up, please indicate that to Johnny. Get the question on the card. I'm happy to answer whatever question. Now, it doesn't matter to me what the question is. We'll work on answering those next week. And so if you have any questions about anything about, you know, scripture, prophecy, the foreshadowing for Jesus, the Messiah, or the plagues, or Egypt, or how Pharaoh could be punished, what the final punishment was to him, which I haven't covered yet, but we'll mention today, and or any of those things, I'm happy to address those next week. So we'll do that in the casual format of question and answer type of the deal, as long as, you know, that works out. And if not, we'll have another lesson, that's fine. So we did the YouTube channel. If you want to subscribe so there are enough numbers, it'll show up. That's fine, you don't have to watch them, as I've mentioned before, because if you've been here, you probably weren't somewhere else during this class, and you can say I was there and subscribe and not do anything, and it still seems to help a little bit with numbers somehow. We don't know. And so today's trivia question is, when Jesus was on the cross, you know, famously he said, "Woman, this man is your son," and to John he said, "Man, this is your mother. Take care of her upon my death," because he cared for her. What three women were stated to be at the cross at that time? That's our, what?
Mary Magdalene, maybe?
Mary Magdalene's one.
Mary the mother
of Jesus, and
Martha.
Martha is not correct in this case, although she was around a lot. What? Yeah, but that's probably the same answer as what I'm giving, which is Mary, the wife of Clopas. Yeah, so let's look over at John 19, who may have been Salome, because she's not mentioned anywhere else. But here's the way you answer any question about a woman's name in the New Testament. You say, "Oh, it's Mary." So that usually makes sense. So John 19:25, near the cross of Jesus, to his mother's sister, and that was probably also Salome, but that's the one I meant was Salome, but she was not named here. Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. So three Marys were named here. And then, of course, Jesus then said, when Jesus saw his mother there and the disciple he loved standing nearby, he said to his mother, "Dear woman, here's your son," and to the disciple, "Here's your mother." From that time on, this disciple took her into his home. So we understand the disciple Jesus loved to be John, though John didn't name himself that way. But that's the inference that everybody's considered to be true over time. I did want to apologize last week. I think I said the cross had the sign on the King of the Jews in Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic, and it was Latin, Greek, and Aramaic, and I apologize, that was a misstatement. Latin was the official language of the Roman Empire in writing, Greek was the official language in speech, and Aramaic was the casual language of Israel at that time.
So this Mary, the wife of Clopas, is that the mother's sister, or is the mother's sister not?
If she had a niece, she is the mother's sister.
Because
yes,
the way it reads,
but yeah, go ahead.
But his mother and his mother's sister.
There are two debates there. Yeah, that could be.
Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary the Magdalene stood beside the cross of Jesus.
Yes, so Mary, the wife of Clopas, may have been Mary's sister, Mary, More likely Salome, not to be confused with sausage, was the probably the sister of Mary, but it's debatable. And the reason it's debatable is we don't have a specific mention of Mary, the wife of Clopas, or Clopas being married to a Mary, other than this passage. So it could be that Mary's sister was Mary. That's not that unusual, you know. And I know we went down, we were on vacation somewhere off the coast of Mexico briefly, and went to ride on some dolphins. And so we were in this pool with dolphins, and there were like 5 groups. And our guide was Mary, or Maria. And so she said, oh, and you know, the other ones here, if you need them, this is Maria, who's got, you know, like Clopas, the dolphin. And this is Maria, who has like Magdalene, the dolphin. And this is Maria with Sam, and this is Maria with... And I thought, how do they know who's assigned to who if they're all named Maria? So anyway, that's a common thing, though, to have a common name. And of course, Maria, being the Hispanic version of Mary, is very classically common in that area of the world. So anyway, I think that Mary, the wife of Clopas, was different than Mary's sister, because I think that Mary's sister was Salome. So either way, there's some extended family around there. Now, I want to go back to what we were talking about with dates and the Passover. And so I put some on the board, and I know I'm not really doing stuff on the board because I think it gets hard to read from the back because I don't write big and things like that. But of course, I do have excellent writing. I know you'd all agree. But the first month, remember at Exodus 12, let's turn over to Exodus 12, and this does pertain. But if you look at Exodus 12:1, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron in Egypt, this month is to be for you the first month of the year. Okay, we talked about how the 7th month was Ethanim, which is the first month of the civil sequence. And so in the calendar, for the Jews, there were 12 months. There were months 1 through 12. And then God said that at the 7th month, that was to become the first month of the sacred calendar. So what was, this is Ethanim, and this is Abib, or what I usually call Nisan because it's a more modern name than Abib. This was to become the first month because instead of just a casual calendar for the year, it was to have the religious significance that the Israelites were delivered from Egypt in this first month of the sacred calendar. So this is for you, this month of Abib or Nisan, instead of being the 7th month, is to be the first month of the religious calendar. And I hope that makes sense, because best way I know to say it. So in the sacred calendar, this became the first month, then Ethanim became the 7th month. And so if we consider that, and then we know that the lamb was to be chosen on the 10th day of the month, which we have redefined innumerable times now as the beginning of the Passion Week, as Palm Sunday, the day that Jesus was brought into Jerusalem and chosen as the Lamb of sacrifice, even though no one but Jesus, and I think God himself there obviously, knew, because nobody understood he was about to be crucified. And in fact, 2 days later even, they were saying, oh, we need to probably do something about Jesus, we need to kill him, but this is too difficult because the people love him too much. We read that last week about on the 12th day of Nisan, he was at the home of Simon the leper, and they were upset because he was hanging out with lepers. And they said, you know, we really need to kill him, but he's too popular. Well, by 2 days later, they were able to bring him up for crucifixion. You know the whole story of Pilate and everything. So the lamb was selected on the 10th, according to Exodus 12. And then the Passover was the night of the 14th. That was the night they were to put blood on their doorways and have the angel of God or God himself pass over Egypt and kill the firstborn. And that was the Passover. The original Passover And God said, this is to be for you a lasting ordinance, and you're to celebrate it year after year to remember what I did when I put the firstborn of Egypt to death and saved the Israelites. And in fact, if we even go over, like for instance, to Luke 2, just as an anecdotal mention of this, let's go to Luke 2:41. Let's do 39 first. Luke 2:39. When Joseph and Mary done everything required by the law of the Lord, they returned to Galilee to their own town of Nazareth. And the child grew and became strong. He was filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was upon him. Every year, his parents went to Jerusalem for the feast of the Passover. When he was 12 years old, they went up to the feast according to custom. So every year, the men of Israel were required, if they were in any reasonable distance whatsoever, they were required to go for Passover. And then if the family went, that was fine too. But every year, the men of Israel were required to go to the Passover. So in verse 41, every year his parents went to Jerusalem for the feast of the Passover. Nothing odd about that. And I was talking with my son Jeffrey about this, that Nazareth and Jerusalem are about 60 miles apart. I think it's technically by the trail that's there now, 62 miles. And so if you walked, 12 miles a day for 5 days, you could do that at a reasonable pace. You could also, according to my Google Maps, you'll do it in 29 hours if you want to just walk. But I think they probably stopped. And of course, they got 3 days on the journey back before they realized Jesus wasn't with them that year. And that's been a point of a lesson sometimes where people say, oh, how could they not know Jesus wasn't with them? Well, if this was a big group from Nazareth that went every year, I think it also wouldn't be that odd to say, we all know the way there. We all know the way back. We got, let's say 5 days to make it back. I don't think it was necessarily that unusual that they wouldn't realize till day 3 that Jesus wasn't with them. And of course, he was famously in speaking with the teachers of the law in the temple, and they were amazed at what he knew for someone as young as him. So anyway, going back to the Passover. So if on the 14th the lamb was sacrificed and Jesus was put to death, and for reference, let me have you turn over to Matthew real quick. Matthew 12. We'll look at the little sign of Jonah because it's important. Matthew 12:38. Some of the Pharisees and teachers of the law said to him, Teacher, we want to see a miraculous sign from you. He answered, A wicked and adulterous generation asks for a miraculous sign, but none will be given it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the huge fish, so the Son of Man will be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth, in the tomb. The man Nineveh will stand up at the judgment with this generation and condemn it, for they repented at the teaching and preaching of Jonah, and now one greater than Jonah is here. The queen of the south will rise at the judgment with this generation and condemn it, for she came from the ends of the earth to listen to Solomon's wisdom, and now one greater than Solomon is here. So, briefly, without getting into the reasoning too much, the Queen of Sheba, the Queen of the South, was not well regarded among the Israelites because they had to pass after the time of the Exodus. They had to pass through the land of Edom, the land of the south, the land down near present modern day Yemen, where the Queen of Sheba was from, and the people of Edom, who were the descendants of Esau, who were always in conflict with Jacob and the Israelites, said, well, yeah, you can pass through, but you have to go essentially single file. You have to go on this little trail. You can't veer to the right or to the left. And it angered the Israelites at the time, frustrated them, because they had what we previously defined as somewhere between 2.8 and possibly 6 million people. And it's a little hard to go single file in that area and try to do it efficiently. So so I've heard, I haven't tried. But when you look at the Queen of Sheba being mentioned as raising up to testify about Jesus before the Israelites could, that would frustrate them. And then, of course, he said the people of Nineveh will rise up and testify to the truth of Jesus, because they understood when Jonah preached to them, very indicting of the Israelites, because remember where the Israelites were in captivity for years, was in Persia. Nineveh is in Persia. The people didn't take kindly to the idea that they had been in exile and enslaved during those years in Persia and the area of Nineveh. And so even when Jonah was told by God, I want you to go preach to Nineveh, his immediate response was, I think I'm going to run the other way, get on a boat, and escape, because who would go to Nineveh to preach? And so when Jesus said the people of Nineveh, even the people that were the pagans who enslaved you, will actually realize who I am before you do, that's a considerable insult to the people of Israel. So there were reasons behind this being the sign of Jonah, but I think the truth of the statement too includes that he'd be 3 days and 3 nights in the tomb. So when we look at 3 days and 3 nights in the tomb after being crucified on the 14th of Nisan or Abib, what day does that get us to?
17.
17th. All right, very good. Love the math. Also love to find the pen I just lost. Here we go. And it's, so the 17th we'll say as the resurrection. And for the sake of not repeating or killing the dead horse yet again, I'm going to just mention that this was Sunday morning. And so my belief is Jesus was crucified on Thursday the 14th because that's how it fits with the selection of the lamb, the Passover, the crucifixion, because of the special Passover on the 14th Nisan. No matter what day of the week that was Passover. The special Sabbath, I should say. So when he is resurrected on the 17th of Nisan, so I'm going to redefine that or restate it because I want it to be obvious. Nisan is the first month. Where's that race? All right.
There's a big one up there.
Oh, good. Where is it?
Right there behind the squirt bottle there.
Oh, is that a racer?
Yes.
All right, so all right, so so that's the first month. So what was Nisan prior to, or be prior to Exodus 12? Let's just say from Exodus 11 back to the beginning. What was that? That would be
17.
Instead of the 1/17 date of resurrection, or 1/14 for Passover, it would have been
7.
Oh, I'm holding it. 7. All right, so this is why I don't run the board much. All right, and then, so it was the 7th month until then, until Exodus 12. Okay, we'll go with that. Now, yes.
What month does that correspond?
Well, that's, for now, that is, that's a great question. The first month of the year, the month of Nisan or Abib in the Jewish calendar, is the month that the almond blooms begin to show. And so when we look at our Easter, as you know, Easter is a different day each year, right? But the dates are roughly March, I gotta try to remember this now, March 18th to April 16th, I believe. I may be misquoting myself. But the reason it varies is on the Jewish calendar, it is marked as the first new moon after the almonds bloom is the first day of Nisan. And so then the 10th day is the celebration of Palm Sunday, and I'll explain that here in a second. The 14th day is the Passover day, and then what that year was the 17th is Easter Sunday, the day Jesus rose from the tomb. And so if you look at almost any calendar in the world, what do you see when you look at Easter Sunday? And this is a good guess what I'm thinking because you won't. So I'll tell you what you see. And that is, you see that it says Easter Sunday observed. And the reason is Christians observe the resurrection on Sundays. But Easter Sunday is not always Easter Sunday. It's Easter Sunday 1 in every 6 years because of the way the calendar works. Just like your birthday may be on a Sunday every 6 years, or 7, depending on how you count the leap year falling into that sequence. So, a very brief, and I don't have much time, I just want to mention the way we got the calendar, the way we have it, because this is the point where somebody always asks, what about Orthodox Easter that's a week later? Because in the Eastern world, if you're from the Egyptian or Greek churches that observe Christianity eastward toward like Russia and the part of the world that is Eastern Orthodox, they celebrate Easter a week later because they consider the beginning of the year to be at the first quarter of the moon, is my understanding, rather than the new moon. So remember, in the moon cycle, it's 28 or 29 days. That's how months end up being different lengths. In the Jewish calendar, there are 12 months, and the 12th month in the sacred calendar is the month of Adar. And if they have fallen behind in dates, thanks, Ernie, you want me to pass that around?
Yes.
Okay. Here's the men's seal pass around. You can see who signed up, get their number if you have a chance. So, just kidding. But the if you have if they fall behind in the calendar to where the month of Nisan, Aviv, the first month would be before the almond bloom, then there's a second Adar, which is another 28 days thrown in to catch that up. That's why we have not 28 or 29 days per month, but we have 28, 30, or 31 days per month, because it's been discovered that the Earth's rotation is about 365 days around the Earth. It's not 12 moon cycles, in other words. And so, I feel like this is getting needlessly complicated, sorry. But I would just want to mention that when leap year came into use, it's because it's really 365 years and like, can't remember exactly.
One quarter.
And a quarter.
Roughly.
Yeah, it's like 6 hours and 14 minutes. And so every fourth year or every even numbered year that's divisible by 4 that has double digit zeros at the end, like not 1900 but the year 2000, all those are a leap year because we have to catch up to what would be daytime, nighttime, and the proper sequence of events in our calendar. So when looking at the calendar over time, it's very difficult to go back and say exactly what day was the 14th of Nisan or the 17th of Nisan in the last year of the life of Jesus. Because the calendar was the Julian calendar, Julius Caesar, then the calendar was the Gregorian calendar, and now we have a modern Gregorian calendar, and there have been days skipped here and there because of the realization of the leap year. And so, for instance, I believe it was in 1610 or 11, there was a skip, no, 17, I'm sorry, 1734, I knew this, 1734 and 1735, there was a skip from one day to like 14 days, 16 days forward. I think it was September 10th to September 24th. One day was September 10th and the next day was September 24th to make up for the days that were lost to the calendar. So, like for instance, if you then wanted to obsess over like when George Washington was born, and he was born in February of that year, and you try to count how many days he lived, you'd have to take out those 14 days because while he lived on the calendar those days, he didn't live those days because they didn't exist. So all of that, I think, was to say something about this calendar, which is that when we look at this date, I want us to now look back at Genesis. And that is the month of Nisan. So that's what I was going to say, is that the months in the Jewish calendar don't fall the way our months do. They fall by season and by moon cycle. And so when we look at our day of Easter, it is the closest Sunday to the one following the 14th of Nisan, Passover, but it's not always a Sunday. And so we observe Easter Sunday on Sunday because we do that as a Christian worldwide entity. But it is not a Sunday every year. And that's, yes?
So at what point did the Jews start off keeping their Sabbath on the Saturday every week?
Yeah, good question. And so let me, I'm going to answer this. Actually, I can answer that very quickly. Is that by Exodus 20, when the 10 Commandments came and God said, rest on the seventh day, that is a Sabbath day, that you should do no work. That's when they actually began to call it the Sabbath. So while they were in captivity in Egypt, they didn't refer to the Sabbath. There was no Sabbath. And so a lot of us have been taught that the Sabbath day is there because God rested from creation on the seventh day. And that's technically what God referred back to, except that it wasn't that God needed the rest, it was that man needed the rest. And he wanted the people to work for 6 days and be off the seventh. However, he also mentioned that there were several different special Sabbaths that occurred during the year, including the first and seventh day of the Feast of Weeks. And in last couple weeks, I mentioned that if you start the Feast of Weeks on Saturday, it ends on Friday, so you have a special Sabbath on Friday where you don't work because it's part of the Feast of Weeks. If it started on Tuesday, you'd have a Sabbath on Tuesday and a Sabbath on the following Monday, because those are special Sabbaths for the Feast of Weeks. So Sabbath day recurrently was on Saturdays, but the special Sabbaths were predicted only by the Holy Calendar. So I hope that answers the question. Now I want to look, because I think this is of special significance to our realization of God's plan, and that is over at Genesis 8. Genesis 7:24, the waters flooded the earth for 150 days. You know the story. Noah was told to build the ark, rained 40 days, 40 nights, water covered the earth. Then chapter 8, verse 1, God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and livestock that were with him in the ark, and he sent a wind over the earth, and the waters receded. Now the springs of the deep and the floodgates of the heaven had been closed, and the rain had stopped falling from the sky. The water receded steadily from the earth. At the end of 150 days, the water had gone down, and on the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. So the ark came to rest back on the earth to fulfill God's promise he would save those in the ark. They didn't exit the ark right away, but the ark was available on land. The land was available to the ark to rest on the 17th day of the 7th month. Well, what did the 7th month become?
First month.
The first month. This was the month of Abib, the 7th month, which became the first month in the sacred sequence. So the ark rested on the same day on the calendar that Jesus rose from the grave. And I think that's of significance. I think when you look at, like we were talking about last week, the threshold of Araunah, where the death angel stopped during the punishment on David, and David bought the threshold, and then Solomon built Solomon's temple on the threshold of Araunah. There was a reason behind all these things happening. And there's a reason that God wanted them to celebrate the Passover. And I think part of it is when you look back at salvation to people from God himself, from God Almighty, he saved the people originally from the destruction of the earth. On the same day he saved you and me through the blood of Christ and the resurrection. And I think that's of significance. I think that's not accidental. I don't think it's an accident that God said on the 17th day of the 7th month the ark rested on the mountain. Because why else would we want to know that or need to know that unless there's significance to it? And I think that whole plan, this entire plan in Exodus 12 that talked about you select a lamb, you put blood out because blood sacrifice is required to save a life, and you present your lamb before God, put the lamb to death at that night, shed the blood, eat of the lamb, celebrate the salvation of God while the people of Egypt were suffering the death of the firstborn because they weren't God's people. Then on the 17th, on the 14th of Nisan, Jesus was brought up for us during the Passover week at the Passover feast, even when they didn't think they could even put him to death 2 days before the Jews. 2 days before, they didn't realize it, but this is all part of God's plan, that Passover week. And Jesus had led up to it. He had said, I'll be in the tomb 3 days. I'll be gone. You can kill this body, but 3 days I'll raise it up. And the people thought he was talking ridiculously because, who could bring it back up then, and who could, deal with all the many issues Jesus dealt with. So I think all this, and I've kept us over Sorry about that first time for everything. But I think it's just of special significance for us to realize that God's plan always has purpose behind it. This is not an accidental death of Jesus in Jerusalem in Passover week during his 3rd year of ministry. This was very intentional, the way he was brought up before the people to shout him down as crucify him 2 days after the Jews had said, we can't touch this guy because he's too popular among the Jews. All that was for a reason, and I think the reason God wanted the people to celebrate Passover year after year to remember it, even 1,000 years out from when it occurred, was that they could then see the plan that God had for the salvation of all through the blood of Christ. Thank you for listening intently and continuing with us. And next week we'll do some question and answer and or some more prophecies concerning Jesus. Thank you.